Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Exit Stage Left. We're back, and it's going to be a little bit different. I am really missing you, Michelle Ford, because she and I had launched this together quite some time ago. But we're going to be continuing this, and hopefully, I'll be able to have Michelle back on sometime when she has time to contribute. But I'm your host, Niti. We're broadcasting live here from the Food Church on North Carolina. We are people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel. We're shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you, and we're sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. This show, Exit Stage Left, is going to bring you the people here, the American people who, and probably some people from other nations from around all over the earth, who are exiting stage left. We're exiting the theater. And if you guys have questions, please put them in all caps and enter them once per show. And we will get to a moment where we go to questions. But I'm going to be featuring all the people that are doing the work. And we're going to be talking specifically about how our assemblies can move forward more powerfully with various teachings on various subjects. Okay, but it'll just be we, the people here, coming onto this particular show, Exit Stage Left, talking to you about the work that is happening with the boots on the ground. Well, today I am really proud to introduce you to my guest, Debra-Ann. She's the facilitator of the Ombudsman Way, who is joining us live from Michigan today. And so, welcome, Debra-Ann. How are you?
I am well and happy to be here with you, Niti. This is
Well,
an
thank
awesome
you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining me today and, for being one of the very courageous living women on the land and soil who is doing this very important work for a time such as this, which is, the Great Remembrance. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Why don't we just start by getting to know a little bit about you? Would you like to be able to share with everyone, where are you from? A little bit about what your experience has been and what brought you. Um, well, first, just tell us a little bit about you and your family. How's that?
Okay. Well, to tell you a little bit about me and then my family, kind of shows you the path that I've taken to get here. So I feel like my entire life has been the learning process for actually being in this place, in this moment in time, that's calling us all forward to be our best selves and to give what we've received. So I was born in California. Um, uh, I was adopted by my father. I was the oldest of four. We were from poor Mexican family, although my father wasn't Mexican, he was Irish. Um, but that said, my mother was crippled. My father was an alcoholic. There's lots that goes with that. Um, but all of my life has been healing those wounds to get to a place where I found the man that I loved and we married. And life, at that point in time, life threw me a bunch of curves where I needed lots of therapy to get over panic attacks and stuff because I was healing all of life. Life brings us challenges to heal from, and that healing and that knowledge that we carry with us is what we're able to give back to the world, to other people who are in those places. So that brought us from his job, um, brought us to Michigan in 97. So we've been here a while. And here I learned a whole bunch of things. Michigan's a really interesting place, but in the East, in not being in California, being in the East, away from family, um, I discovered raw milk. I discovered fresh meat. I discovered ways of eating. I dug, like I said, lots of therapy, got over panic attacks, found out who I was. Much to my husband's chagrin, I am a very strong, capable, confident woman, which isn't what he married. But anyway, um, and I wanted to have children. And this kind of leads into the whole story. I had a choice of becoming a teacher. I've always been good at conveying information and seeing what people need to know and breaking down things that are complex into simple things to teach. So I wanted to be a teacher, but I also wanted to have a family. So here we decided I wanted a family. That was what I wanted. And I figured, well, I could teach my children. That would take care of the teacher part of me. I did teacher training while they were young in the Waldorf schools. I homeschooled my kids from kindergarten through high school. Um, Took very good care of them, protected them from the medical mafias and the bad food. And they're both young adults now, which is really great. But in that process, this is some of the story of to getting to where I am today. My two young adults are still trying to launch because there's lots of things out there that they're having to fight against. And my husband was very ill. So those types of things. For those who knew, he was in the hospital last week. He's back home. He's doing well. Um, But our farmer in 2005, 2006 was pulled over by the Michigan Department of Agriculture and the FDA, and they confiscated his truck, all the food, everything, his cell phone. Um, I didn't know if I was living in America or if I was living in another country. They left him, they were going to leave him on the side of the road, and that whole story, it just shook me to the core. If I That was what made me really aware of how fearful I was of the government.
Mm.
I was afraid that they were going to come after me because I didn't do the things they requested that I do with my children who came from Central America. And I started looking on the internet and discovering people that were teaching about the law, teaching about being sovereign, teaching about how important your signature was, teaching all these things. But my children were little. They were still 5, 4 or 5. And as much as I could do my teacher training, look at the sovereignty videos and such, I kind of let that go while I was raising them because I gave myself 100%. I usually give myself 100% to anything I do. So
Right.
once they got to a place where they were doing a lot, in high school and that kind of stuff, the pandemic hit,
Mm.
or the plandemic,
Right.
and trying to find a community that wasn't wearing masks and wasn't buying the narrative, I found online. And a couple of the people that are local to where I live, I connected up with, and one of them told me about Anna, told
Mm.
me about her writings. I dug in and started learning, and I knew that this was the next thing I was going to do. Up until this point in my life, I thought the only thing I was here to do on this planet was to heal myself. Because in healing myself, other people get healed. But no, no, no. This was what I was being prepared for. I knew the assemblies is where I needed to be. But that was a struggle as well. Even getting papered up was a struggle. I I can't tell you the number of times I cried because I knew no matter what I did, I was never going to be allowed into the assembly because I had already made it clear that I was a truth teller, and I asked hard questions, and so that was difficult. But
Mm-hmm.
I eventually, this last iteration, made it in, and yeah, from there, there's a whole other story that goes with that. But that's how I got to Anna. That's how I got to where I am today. I've been uh, doing the think tank, and the Ombudsman way is now my offering. But I think I answered your question. Did I?
Yes, of course. I mean, look, we're not actors, for all the people that are watching. Most of the people who've been watching this channel know that we're not actors. So we are not reading scripts. We're not, part of um, the rhetoric or whatever, the agendas are. We're the living men and women who are the truth speakers, the ones who remember who we are, and we remember where we came from. And, anyone who is going to be working powerfully to free all men from bondage, because this is the mission. This is Anna's mission for us, is we are working to free all living men from bondage. That's the only mission. There is no other mission. And Anna did not call the state assemblies into session until she already had been working on the banking solution, because she knew that until you are financially sovereign, you are not sovereign. So the first thing was to, have the creator of the corporations, which was the Roman Curia, take responsibility for their creation, because the Roman Curia was who created the corporate fiction. And so because they created the corporate fiction, which includes everything from all the trusts to all the corporations to, it's the reason why the Pope owns those creations. It is the reason why, for those people who are just tuning in maybe for the first time and have no idea, the reason that the Pope and the Vatican own, Rome owns all these things, is because they were the creators of the corporate fiction, which is the heir jurisdiction. Okay. So because they created that, then Anna, with, a group of 900, they went and said, they put, the Pope's feet to the fire and was like, look at this monster that you have created. You need to get hold of your creation. And so Pope Benedict he says, okay, well, I'm going to need help to do this. And so he asked for a volunteer. And Anna was the one who ended up being the volunteer. I mean, how they, managed to decide who was going to be the volunteer or whatever, I mean, I don't know all the details of that. But she ended up being the volunteer. So she was the one who was trained in all of this. And so here we are. But, there was an order in which this all came about. It's not like this wasn't well thought out. And it was, the guidance came from the creator of the corporate fiction, which was the Pope.
Manny, I love the fact that you outlined that, because in parallel to studying common law and the assemblies and stuff, I was studying Ayurvedic stuff. The Siddhaveda lineage is about how we think. And one of the things we say is that the big picture that you just gave is the macrocosm. And each one of us is a microcosm of the exact same thing that just happened. Each one of us is owned in our minds by what we allow to go into our minds, right? So all the propaganda from the television, from the media, all that stuff. And as we take control of ourselves, as we take control of our beings, as we take control of our right to be sovereign, we take control of what comes into our mind, what comes out of our mouth, and we let go of the things that are controlling us. So we, at the big picture is we've got laws and heir jurisdiction. I would call that in our own lives our spirituality, in religion, because religion has put things in our minds that may be divisive.
Yeah, let me just stop you with one thing. Spirituality is not in the heir jurisdiction. I want to get that out of there. Okay. The heir jurisdiction is the creative jurisdiction, the imaginative jurisdiction, and spirituality is not just our imagination. It is real. We are not going to confuse that. But religion is 1,000,000% incorporated.
Right.
And so that is the actual difference there. And when we definitely have to recognize that we were enslaved, and we have to work on shedding the slave self. And so most people who are enslaved never know that they are slaves. And so with that, I yield back to you.
That is a great distinction, because it's a very real distinction. And so much of what we're learning and needing to learn and shed is the difference between falsehood and the difference between truth. Because as we speak truth, only peace can exist. Um, so we were as I was comparing us being a microcosm of the macrocosm, as we shed the unreal in us, as we shed the falsehood in us, we are able to live in peace. But it means being committed to not being right, because we're not always right, because we've been programmed in ways that we don't know. You said being a slave, usually you don't know you're a slave. And so we yield to the people who have walked before us, and we yield in every conversation. Am I here to be right, or am I here to communicate and create connection? I'm here to create connection. I'm here to share things that help create connection, because that's one of the things that the de facto does, is they are departmentalized. People do not communicate. So falsehood can exist everywhere because nobody's talking to each other. And we need to create connection with each other in order for truth to prevail, because until that happens, there can be no peace.
The compartmentalization 100% works in their favor. And this is what, people want, like right now, even, we were talking about having this conversation, and immediately we're getting people telling us that we can't talk to each other. I mean, this happens to me all the time. People are trying to tell me who I can talk to and who I can't talk to, and who I, can have what kind of conversation with, and who I can't have a specific conversation with. Well, let me just tell you what, I'm going to talk to whoever I want about whatever I want. And especially because I operate in the truth and facts. And if you are interested in trying to shut me up, then everyone needs to know who you are. Because the only people that have a problem with us communicating openly are people who have something to hide. The people who have something to, when they talk about shame, you and I had a little bit of a conversation before we went live today about our, parents who raised us up, and, they wanted us to, really behave and be good, and, like really not embarrass ourselves and all of these things. And the problem that my mom always had with me is that she kept saying, like, oh my God, what are people going to think about this? Oh, why aren't you, you need to watch out, because people are going to think this about you, or they're going to try to think that about you. Or she would try to shame me into believing whatever. And I was like, what am I doing that is wrong? I'm not doing anything that's wrong. I'm not doing anything that causes harm. I'm only being honest. And really, if we pay attention to the times that we want our babies to stop talking, it's because they're calling out the truth in others. And a lot of the moms and dads are like, oh my God, that's rude. No, it's not. It's the truth. It's the truth. And so there's no reason to shame someone for speaking the truth. If you want to care about people, this thing that they want us to do is to put on a show. Well, we're not putting on a show. I didn't come here to be an actor on a show. And this is where we have to go back to the way that things, like, nature always has an order, okay, guys? And nature does not lie. It doesn't lie. When you come to the edge of a cliff, it's not lying to you about the fact that you better watch out. Okay? It's not lying. You have to watch out. If you don't watch out, guess what? You might die. You may be harmed. And so we have to, if we want to operate as a sovereign, if we want to operate in our full power in this way, we cannot do any harm. You cannot do harm. And so that requires you to be honest.
That requires you to be honest. And one of the things that the falsehood that I think is tearing a lot of the assemblies apart is the dishonesty of gossip. So, if someone sends you an email and it bothers you, you need to be talking to them. Dial the phone, give them a call. Did you really mean that? Because I did it, you don't take that email and send it to other people so they could see what was said to you. That is the first seed of destruction in your assemblies.
That is the behavior of people who suffer with arrested development. They haven't matured into the age of majority. And I'm not calling them adults because we aren't interested in being adulterated or operating with people who are adulterated or adulting, because we're not going to be adults. We are going to be the age of majority. So anyone over 21 is the age of majority. Anyone under 21 is the age of minority. However, you still have to develop your frontal cortex, and you still have to develop a lot of other things like foresight, which most living men, most of us beings, the living men beings, mankind and women, we aren't fully developed until basically between 25 and 30. It just depends on, the individual and what they've experienced. And, there are many, many people who have their babies before the 25 to 28 and 30. And so this pushes them forward to be a little bit more conscious. And so they're efforting a little bit more, but they're doing that to protect the babies. But traditionally, in a natural setting, nature had intended for those young moms to be surrounded by the community, which would have included elders, so that they would have been working together to bring, the babies up. And this is something that we hope to be able to bring everyone back to. But this behavior that you're speaking of is 1,000,000% arrested development. These people have not matured into the age of majority as designed by the programming and the mind control and the brainwashing of the machine, the corporatocracy. And until we recognize this for what it is and talk about it honestly, then we are lying to ourselves and we're lying to each other, and we can get nowhere.
That's really correct. And the thing that the grace that you gave, which I loved, is the fact that we've been programmed. We weren't taught this. We live in a society that separates families. You don't grow up with aunts and uncles around you. Some people have that luxury, but not everybody. And the thing of in the assemblies, we're hoping to nurture one another to the place where we can be this strong, self-governing individual, having developed into our adulthood and seeing the things that we may have done wrong. There's no guilt. One of the things I want to be really clear about, and of course this comes from my Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer training, is there's no failure, only feedback. Feedback you can grow from. Failure arrests your development because there's guilt. Guilt is just...
it's an abuse of power from an authority in culture. That's what it is. And we rebuke evil. We rebuke all evil. And so therefore, that's one of the reasons we don't do that. Because what does nature say, Debra-Ann? When you try to climb the tree and you fail, you fall down, nature isn't shaming you and screaming at you and telling you what a loser you are. It's just saying, try again.
Exactly. Exactly. It's only feedback. We make mistakes. In one of the books I'm reading, the gentleman says, um, the one thing is true about all conversation: you will make a mistake. All conversation, you're going to make a mistake. But the good news is you can correct it. There's
you're
always another conversation.
you're probably going to make that mistake because we're not really supposed to use words. We're
Mm.
supposed to communicate uh, energetically. We're supposed to communicate with our frequency, with our vibration. We are electrical beings. We're not really supposed to be using all these words.
So now we're trapped in a world where you and I are on a screen, and
Hmm.
the only way we can communicate is the words. Luckily, you can see my facial expressions and my body language, and you hear my tone of voice, but I'm not in your magnetic field.
Right.
And that's one of the things I think that the pandemic was a blessing and a curse. The blessing is we were all able to connect. We have this platform. We have the ability to hear and learn from each other. But we need to we need to meet in person. We need to feel the love.
Hmm.
They wanted us 6 feet apart because within that 6 feet boundary, we're sharing information with each other, all unconscious, subconscious, however you want to talk about it. But yeah, we are electromagnetic beings. We're spiritual beings. We have the capacity for truth and peace, but it's a choice, definite choice, and each one of us has to make it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you're able to actually be in the flesh with other folks, then you can know immediately. And this is where we need to get back to. I mean, well, someone can know. Some people still have no idea how to. I mean, they just have lost all their senses. They don't even know if they're hungry. They just know that it is lunch o'clock or dinner o'clock or whatever.
Mm,
Which is completely false.
right.
There's
Yeah.
so many lies. This is the thing that's so difficult, um, because there's just so many falsehoods. Everything that we were ever told was a manipulation.
Yeah, I remember even getting here to 28 years ago. I couldn't tell people that I was not mentally stable, emotionally stable, because I wore a mask, right? Everybody
Mhm.
thought I was okay, but I wasn't okay. But today it's okay for me to say that because it's not a shame. It wasn't my fault those challenges came into my life. It was not my fault the traumas came into my life. It's not my fault I was born with the personality that I have. Um, and learning that nothing's failure, it's all feedback. Feedback, let's move forward. I know in my new role as uh, Debra-Ann, as a woman on the land and soil, making an offering of peace through the Ombudsman way is different than what I was, which was the Ombudsman on the Assembly. Um, but I forgot my point. I had a really good one too. I'll remember in a minute.
About being the ombudsman, or
Being,
about moving forward and creating this new offering.
it was probably both, but it's interesting how it went right through my mind. So I'm guessing
Mhm.
it's
That
not
it's not
words that should be
important.
important.
It's
Exactly.
not important. No one needs to
Yeah.
know.
Right.
So, we're all guided by the cadre of all of those that came before us that have our back. And we're all here together. And if we can't all live and work together and stop trying to attack each other and accuse each other of things, then, I mean, anyone who's out there accusing people of stuff, and they won't, I'll tell you this, 99% of the people who accuse me of things will not actually talk to me. And by the way, if you send me an email hate message, it's not the same as actually having a conversation with me. Also, it just gets you deleted out of my mailbox. So if you actually want to resolve a situation, then you must have an open conversation with the living man or the living woman. And in which moment you also have to be willing to hear what they're saying, because there are a lot of people who assume things. And this is all part of the corporate training. The corporate training is that anybody who is on a public platform is supposed to be scrutinized to death, and you're supposed to expect everything from them. So if you come forward and you speak like that, now you're a target. And you're only a target in their world. You're not really a target because, unless you allow yourself to be. So that's the other thing. We have to allow ourselves to be victims or be the masters and the creators of our life, because we actually create our own life. We get to choose where we're going to be, where we're going to show up, what we're going to do, and how we're going to show up. So I create my own reality 100%. I get to choose who I'm going to talk with, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to operate. And it's really incredible when you start to stand up to the master, to the machine, to help and break living men away. The amount of pushback you get from the slaves, Debra-Ann, who want to remain enslaved, who want to remain loyal to this machine, is really, I think at the beginning, a lot of us feel like, oh, we need to help them get this truth. We need them to see the light, but that's not the work. And anyone who gets caught up into that, you're not better than the master trying to, control the people.
It's a good point you bring up, because we're here to do a job, and the job is a government. And it's not a good old boys club. It's not a I like you, you like me. It's like, we've got personality differences. I think one of the most precious gifts I received was from one of the men on our assembly that told us about the Myers-Briggs personality test. And I had heard about it, but I'd never really paid any attention to it. But because of all the turmoil that went on, I took my personality test, and I discovered that I'm one of these people that people misunderstand. And that was an eye opener for me to know that because I see it, not everybody else sees it. Because I'm aware of it doesn't mean everybody else is aware of it. So one of the things I've come away from, and everything that happens in my life, I look at what is it that I'm supposed to learn and move forward with.
Right.
And so what I discovered is I see, but I'm not very good at communicating. I have to connect the dots for people. And so that means I have to stop. I have to think about, how did I get to this? And many times it's intuitive. So I have to think really hard to figure out, how would this actually make sense to someone to actually come to the realization that I have. And so I'm busy doing that. I'm busy trying to figure that out. But the other thing I'm really aware of too, because you and I have talked before about there being 3 types of people on our assemblies, right?
Before we get there,
Okay.
man,
Yes, please.
I just want to say that we're in creating this government, like you say. I want to make it plain to everybody that we are giving power back to the people. This is the people's government, not the corporate government, because what anybody's ever seen or known is the corporate government. We're the power is supposed to be with the people. We are self-governing. We don't actually require a government. We get organized. We have some systems that we put in place. For example, the traffic system. works really good. You know, those traffic lights and stop signs, I mean, when people follow them and follow the lines on the road, they work pretty good, you know. Now, there are times when living men either choose not to follow them or there's an accident, right? Things happen, like trees fall or, you know, deers run or mooses or something, you know, or we fail, you know, as a user, like we fell asleep or we did something, you know, crazy or I don't know, whatever, like we get sick. Some people have a heart attack. I mean, things happen. So, you know, but mostly these systems work and they work in our favor, and we shouldn't push back against those things. Now, if someone wants to tell me that they're the boss of me while I'm following that system, that's a different problem, you know. And yes, it's okay. You can pull me over and say, it's an emergency, you're gonna hurt yourself, you're going a little too fast, please slow down. And then they can go away. Because when I say, is it an emergency? Yeah, I think you're going a little too fast because your car was shaking or you look like you didn't have control of it, and please slow down. And then bye. You know, that's one thing. But if you're going to try to pull me over and say something and then you want to give me a bill, bye. We're not doing that. That's different. Now you're trying to be the boss of me or the master over me, right? So let's just identify these few pieces and really make it clear that we're not trying to recreate something that we don't want. You know, we're not trying to say, oh, okay, they think they're in charge, well, we're going to be in charge and we're going to take them down and now we're going to be in charge. No, that isn't the thing. What we're saying is nobody is supposed to be in charge of us. We're supposed to all respect each other. So this is what we want to make plain for everyone, as far as power back to the people and the people's government. And with that, I yield back to you.
Well, what you're talking about is being sovereign. And that means being responsible for every choice that you make, every word that comes out of your mouth, everything. Nobody else's. And your rights end where my rights begin. And so I think we talked about a tail light being out, right? My right is to be able to know that you're stopping. And if your tail lights are out and I don't see it and I crash into you, you're right. Your right to not fix those lights is not a right, because now my rights have been violated. So simple things like that. That's what telling yourself the truth is about.
Right. Or like you said about the email. If I mean, we were having this conversation, Debra-Ann, on the Saturday business call. I was telling folks, you know, you can open your email, and sometimes when you open an email from somebody, it feels like, if I can feel it in my chest like that, that's an assault. And it is okay for me to delete that. I don't need an assault from you or anybody, right?
Right.
So words are things. Thoughts are things. It's the reason for mentalism. It's the reason that Anna asks us to focus on, what do you want and why do you want it? Because if you focus on what you want and why you want it, and stop focusing on fighting with somebody about something that is none of your business, mind your business. Why don't you mind your own business and get yourself straight? I mean, Debra-Ann, you said you spent all this time in, you know, self-reflection and in, you know, healing yourself, and you were only focused on healing yourself. That's nothing to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. Why is everyone not working on that?
There's no really good payoff. I think people do things because they get a jolt from their adrenaline system, and they're hooked on it. They're hooked on the juice that they get out of the conflict. They're hooked on the juice that they get out of the attention. And
You know, I'm hooked on the juice of clarity. I'm hooked on the juice of truth because it's easy. It's simple, it's peaceful, and there is nothing more powerful than me being able to know something versus wondering, guessing, and or feeling like whatever's happening with me could be over tomorrow because somebody else could do something and me worrying about them. And this is the little petty problem that causes these conflicts. And guess what? You might think it's an adrenaline hit, or somebody might, because what you're saying is not wrong. Like, people are getting high off of that kind of thing. But why? Also, it's such not the best high. The better high is being knowing, not wondering, being in control, and knowing that there's nothing going to interfere with my ability to move. How about that?
Yeah. I think that I think at this point we would get into a lot of therapeutic talk, so I don't want to go there. But one of the things that the reason for what you're saying and what I'm saying is it's a choice to let go of that, right? So that you can discover the high of your very being. Oh my gosh, when you let go of all that stuff and you sit and you're able to hear the birds and then watch the birds and the animals and the clouds in the sky, the colors, the smell, the sun touching your skin. None of that can happen if you're holding on to a grudge, a resentment, trying to figure out how you're going to justify yourself, figure out how you're going to get back at that person. So those are all internal clouds that are blocking the sun, and that's my hope for people that are listening, because on the assemblies, we're supposed to have each other's backs. And as we have each other's backs, we're going to be doing and enjoying who they are, who we are. You know, maybe people didn't like me and the way I interacted. That isn't my problem. What is my problem is the way things went down, and I needed to look at what I could do different, because I'm the only one I can control, and that's the truth for everybody. You are the only person you can control. And so learning how, like I said, learning the communication techniques and such is what's important to me. And it's important to me that so I'm just going to make a plug. So forgive me, y'all. The plug of the Ombudsman Way. That's the goal, is to help people find that place within themselves, with one another, through not only education but through collaboration with one another. Anyway, I'm done with the plug.
I'm not, because I wanted to make this promotion, and I will shamelessly promote it because it is what everyone requires. We have to get our people strong again. We need to get our people better, and we need to heal them. And we can't make people do things that they don't want to do. They have to choose to do it. But we can provide the space for that to happen. And so I want to thank you and praise you for offering it, because somebody has to offer it. And it has to be a living man or a living woman. It can't be the machine. It's not going to come from the machine. It's not going to come from a program that the machine created. We can't follow the machine's program. We can't use any of those things, because all of their programs were to brainwash you and to mind control you. And these are psychological programs that come fully equipped with trigger words. So words are things, and things, can cause harm, and so we need to be formidable on every one of our states. The living men need to become formidable. If there's anyone standing in the way of your ability to become better to become formidable. This is the corporatocracy. This is evil, and you should acknowledge it. So, the corporatocracy wants people, Debra-Ann, to, be politically correct, which means be a professional liar. And they've trained them really well to be liars. They don't know how to tell the truth at all, because they don't know that it's lying when you say, "Oh, how's it going? How's your day?" When you don't really care. Like, why are you saying that? Why are you asking people how they are and what's going on? Or, what's that, man? How's it going? When you don't care. If you don't care, that's fine. You can't say these words and then not take the action behind it, which is to care. Caring is mandatory when we're working with living men and women. For us to be able to work together, and it's really messy. It's way messier than corporations. So here's the other thing, Debra-Ann. Everyone is incorporated. Okay, they start out as a sole proprietorship when their soul was sold to the devil himself. Okay, to Shaitan, to Satan. So Shaitan has control of your soul, and which you sold it to the Satan, and now you've been programmed to operate in this, right? So you must recognize, when you sleep every night, thank goodness that the love has been sewn into your DNA. Did you know? It's been sewn into your DNA. And when you sleep every night, you remember who you are. If only you could remember it when you were awake. Because all of you are so important. You matter so much. You were born worthy beyond belief, and yet you have no idea of that. And some people just have a much longer walk, journey to finding that back out about themselves. But we're hoping we can get you there a whole lot faster. True or false, Debra-Ann?
That's very true. And I think the thing that you mentioned the frontal lobes and how long it takes for that to come online. And the truth is, we are run by our animal nature, because our animal nature is to survive. But when we grow up and our frontal lobes come online, that is our opportunity to take control of that animal nature. That animal nature is going to come up when it feels threatened. If it feels threatened, it's going to be embarrassed. It's going to be shamed. It doesn't want to tell the truth, because telling the truth when you grew up wasn't safe. You don't have to do that anymore when you're an adult. You have a choice. Mm-hmm. It might be scary and the conversation might be difficult, but it creates peace. A difficult conversation is not a war. A difficult conversation is not creating discord. A difficult conversation, if each person is in the conversation for understanding and communication for connection, mm-hmm. That's the key. Communication for connection. Everything will be all right. And right. Each person on the assembly, your general assembly, is only as strong as the most truth, as the most. It's only as strong as those who are truthful, and those who create falsehood weaken the general assembly. Mm-hmm. And you need to be aware of that. It's a hard thing we're being called to do. We're doing something that we have no blueprint for, hasn't been done in 160 years, including being a human. Well, that's not the word I want. Being a man or woman.
A living man or a living woman.
A living man or woman. We are all learning how to do that together, and we're going to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have to have grace, and that requires you to care, and you have to be interested in loving everyone, and you have to be interested in making everything move forward. I don't know why everyone acts like they need to be best friends. Like, we're not in each other's spaces. We all have our own homes, our own lives, our own things that we're doing. All we need is to come together long enough for us to reclaim our land and soil. Everything else that you think that is happening, you are making it bigger than it needs to be because you just have either no desire intentionally to, work with people, or you just don't know how to do that because you've never had to do that before. Because there's a lot of no one was actually educated on this properly. They stole you out of your home, forced you to be raised by the enemy, which is the machine, which is not alive, which is a dead corporation. And so you are definitely bewildered. You're bewildered. You are immersed in chaos and confusion. You're unable to know the truth versus the lies. You suffer with fear and paranoia, and you create chaos. And maybe you're paid and maybe you're not paid. Some of you do it for the money, and some of you just do it because for the power, and some of you just do it because you're following the other two. Either way, you're going to go nowhere. You're going to remain enslaved because that is what you're being either paid to do, or you're made to feel powerful to do it, or you follow those people and you're praised. It's either for pay or for praise.
And those people that are like that on the assembly they will opt out if the rest of the assembly is being honest and truthful and not allowing any of that deceit to move forward into the assembly.
And I'm very proud of everyone in our comment section today, because we had somebody who tried to do that, and somebody else stood up to that somebody and said, stop it. And everyone else backed it up. This Beautiful. Is amazing. And that's what we're talking about. We don't have to tolerate all these liars and all these people that are either paid or either confused or just following them blindly. Blind obedience is not honorable. We operate in honor. If you want to be honorable, the only way to be in honor is to get to the truth of the matter. The reason, and if you are that honorable somebody who is getting to the truth of the matter, then get ready for all the slings and arrows, because you will be getting slings and arrows thrown at you from the bewildered, from the paid opposition, and from their followers, their gang. It's called, what is it? The group, like mob. It's the mob mentality. And these are the mobs of the Caesars. That's how Caesar's Rome was managed. And you are in Caesar's Colosseum with the mob, ruling over the people who are forced to perform in the Colosseum to their death. Do you see how evil this is? It is evil, and you should open your eyes.
So one of the things that people can think about is, if you are accusing another being, is this helping the assembly? Is it hurting the assembly? And what are you getting out of it? And is it true?
Yeah. Men at peace seek knowledge and experience. They have no interest in fighting with each other, because that is juvenile. It is for the people that are not developed. So anyone who is operating in this ignorance, they are not developed properly. They are suffering with arrested development, and they will have to parent themselves out of it by choosing to no longer be that way. They have to choose to want to be better. Because once you're the age of majority, you're responsible for yourself.
Takes courage.
A lot of courage. And, then there's those people that just want to operate in the private on the assembly. So we have bewildered people, we have paid opposition, we have followers, We have the sovereign, who is a man at peace, who's just seeking knowledge and experience because we've never experienced most of this in our lifetime. Okay. And then you have leadership, who might be people who have had a little bit more experience in some of this. But mostly we're, having to research all of this and trying to, practice our way out of this, right? Because we're working together to practice our way and be better and keep each other in check and go, oh, you're falling into that hole. Oh, yeah, sorry. And just, it's okay if you fall off the path, just get back on the path. It's okay if you fall out of the tree, just get back up and get back on the tree. You fall out of, you fall off the path, you get back on the path, you fall off the path. This is an everyday thing. You're just doing this all day long. It's okay. But then there's a lot of people who just want to be private. They want to declare themselves, and they want, some of them might just be living off grid. Some of them might be aged out and they just need protection, and it is our job as the people's government to protect the people and their assets. We're going to protect all precious life. We're never going to be out there in the middle of an emergency going, where's your, membership card? Because this isn't a members only club. If you are a precious living being, if you're a precious life, I don't care if it's a goat or a rat or a man, you're not wanting to create harm for any of the precious life.
True that. And hats off to those sovereigns on all the assemblies who are working so hard, because they're working hard and they're getting slings and arrows pushed towards them. And as long as they stand in the truth and they just keep moving forward, we're going to succeed. But we all need to educate one another, all give each other grace, and all know that we're learning. We're each learning what our jobs are and how to interact with one another. And when new people come in, the dynamics change. We got to be flexible.
Right. We just have to operate in honor. It's not that hard, y'all. You have to care.
Remember what the job is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The mission is just to rescue all men out of bondage. That's it.
That means bondage to the chains that we have on ourselves, too. Yeah.
Yep. That's good. All right. Well, Debra-Ann, we've been doing this for 57 minutes.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, I think we covered most of everything that you and I wanted to cover, but this conversation really needs to continue. And that's the reason why I relaunched Exit Stage Left. And every Tuesday, we're going to bring more conversations like this, because if Anna wants to come back next week,
yay,
because maybe she does, if she needs more time, we need her to guard herself. We need her to remain strong. She's got big work she's doing, and we need to be doing our work while she's doing that. We need to get ourselves more formidable and more powerful in the meantime. And she's given us all the things that we need to be able to do that. But mostly, we just need to work together. And that is the one piece that is missing on every single assembly. Every single one. It's the reason no one's standing. It's the reason nobody's doing anything. Because they can't just get along, because they are suffering from arrested development or all this variety of things. But in order to move powerfully forward, you have to be able to, recognize who you're dealing with and address the landscape. How do you follow a map if you can't find where the path is and you don't know what things you're going to face along the road of that path, from weather to terrain to supplies you might need? I mean, you just need to be prepared. And, being emotionally prepared being mentally prepared, being prepared with love and care, all of these things are important, and what we need to get ourselves back on track with. I think we might need to go back to Sesame Street. Well, not the real one, but
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like this is a waste of time, but if it was a waste of time, it would only have been a waste of time if we were actually getting somewhere. But if our courts were up, we wouldn't need to go back to all this, friends. The rulers have really done a number on us.
Moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah. We can do it. Think about what's coming your direction, because the universe will bring to you those things you need to use to help develop that frontal cortex, or move past that anger or jealousy or whatever. But the universe, God is good about bringing things your way when you're ready and you're willing. Be willing.
You have to be willing and allow it. And did you know that as you remedy all of this for yourself, you remedy it for all of those people before you and all of your progeny in front of you? You clear the path just by healing yourself. So I just wanted to thank you, Debra-Ann, for spending so many years working on, healing yourself so that you could arrive in this moment, because it's no accident or coincidence that you have arrived.
Thank you, Niti.
Well, thank you. And hey, guys, we're going to see you on Thursday at 7 p.m. And then again next week here at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. Do you have any other thing you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just we all can do it. I know we can.
Yes, we can. All right, friends. See you on Thursday.